Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Happy New Year's and welcome to 2021. I hope you're excited for this new year, and I know best of all, we got new episodes of the Momentum Investing podcast coming out. So we're starting the year with a bang. We have some very exciting episodes coming out, starting with today's episode. Today, we have an interview with my old mentor, Deri Llewellyn-Davis. Deri is a business specialist. He is the strategy man. He is a fantastic coach, consultant, mentor, or a CCM, as he himself calls it. He is on boards of multiple property companies. He's helped turnarounds on small and large businesses. And he helped me when my business was really struggling. As you probably know from mine and Gisella's journey, my journey started with the total collapse of our business, and then we had to kind of dig it up from there. That came from the fact that we had the wrong mentors, the wrong coaches, and they led us down the wrong path, and we made horrible mistakes. Deri was one of the key people who came in and turned our business around and allows me to be here today. So I'm your host for today's episode, Daniel Wood, one of the founders of Momentum Property Education, and I'm really excited to be here because this is a very powerful episode, and I know it's going to give you a lot of value. Listen to Deri when he talks about strategy, because he's going to discuss what to do in a crazy market like the one we're in. How do you think about strategy, and how do you move forward in good times and in bad? This is a very important episode, so make sure you have pen and paper ready, or just take notes when you need to on your phone, because this is going to be good. So looking forward to having you here, and I'll see you at the end. Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am here with Deri Llewellyn-Davis. Super excited to have you here, Deri.
Good to be here, mate.
Yeah, super excited to have you here, and super excited to talk to you about strategy. Obviously, you are the strategy guy, and you've done more than your share of property. So in these trying times when the world has been changing, and shifting just continues to happen, how do you go about helping developers, and how do you work on your own projects when it comes from a strategy outlook?
Look, I think I'm not going to ignore that we've been, and depending on when you view this, you probably still are. There's a little bit of a shitstorm going on, right? So there's no positivity is going to talk our way out of that one fully. However, I'm all about strategy. I have been for 2 decades, nearly 2.5 now. So what I've seen booms and busts. I've also studied economic trends over history. I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio's work. He studied economic trends over hundreds of years, right? So this is a moment in time, but then it's important for us as investors, and strategy is the long term, right? It's the big play. All we have to do is understand where we are in that big play. Now, that's the biggest question of all, right? Where are we in that big play? Who knows? But there's certain strategies that will work in any market. There's certain strategies that work in the current markets or the markets we're entering in. And this is the most important time for selection. And I think there's been, of course, when the property's on a boom or a kind of uptick, which is where I came into the markets in kind of 2003, it's like, any monkey can make money in the markets, right? You cannot, but you buy something, it just goes up. You don't have to do anything. You could have even bought badly and it goes up. So, and that actually, I think, drives property investors into a false sense of their own ego, false sense of security of, look at me, I'm just awesome. I made £1 million on those properties. Well, yeah, fair dues, you stepped up, you took action, and you moved, great. But that does not make you a property investor, and this certainly does not make you a strategist, right? So this is actually will flush out the amateurs. And this is already happening, by the way. It's happening in business on the wider context as well. Sadly, there's some real pros over there that's got affected because certain business models just died. I feel that's what I feel the most sorry for, is people whose business model just got taken from underneath their feet.
Yeah, I mean, there are industries obviously that are really hurting.
Awful, right?
What I do like is what you say about the way people used to make money. Because I know so many people that made money in new developments, and it was really just they bought a deal off plan 2 years before it came out, And just by sitting on it for 2 years, they made 25% profit.
Yeah.
As you say, that's not a property investor. That's perfect timing of the market. But and of course, it's knowledge to know that, but it doesn't mean you know how to do a property investment.
And that's a bit of luck, right?
Yeah.
And also, I have to say, there's this thing called luck and fairy dust, and it is part of property. And that's elements along the way. However, it's actually, the more prepared you are, the more learned you are, the more you understand the markets, and you've got to understand the macro markets. And I think I'm very blessed. I've sat on a lot of boards and a lot of property boards at a senior level. So I've had these conversations with very intelligent people, way more intelligent than I do, right? And when you actually look at do we invest right now? What's happening right now? The smartest people are taking the entire macro context into place. This is what's happened over the last 30 years. What's going to happen over the next 20, right? That's smart investing. Now, that's also really a bit of crystal ball gazing, truly understanding economics, understanding the underpinning markets, which is right now is super fascinating and super complex, right? But what I also have seen in those boardrooms is property investors in particular are like goldfish, right? They have got the shortest memories. And I mean, guys who got smashed in 2008 were sitting there 3 or 4 years ago as if they'd just forgotten it. It's like, do you remember that big crash that happened? There's another one coming, by the way, because it always does. It's called economic cycles, right? No, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's like, did you not learn back then? Like, and those who didn't see that and came into the markets in 2010 have only been in the market 10 years, who never experienced that or never saw that. There you go. Okay, because I thought I was slightly immune when I was coming through in the 2000s, right? But it's like when you were there and you've forgotten, then you're a goldfish just going around the bowl, right? That's just insane. But we do, and I think the problem is particularly, and I know you've got a real varied audience here, Daniel, and the newbies won't have seen that. But do you know what? The good news for the newbies is you can study history, right? Now the oldies, the kind of vets in the market, if you don't look at that, then you're stupid, right? That's insane. So there's no point ignoring it. But here's the trap. Developers in particular, the worst at this are the really experienced developers, because now you have to do really hard decision making to stop. Because once you've bought land and you're developing out, or you're developing out flat, when you're on scale, it's like a juggernaut, and it's very hard to stop.
Well, there's a separate challenge, obviously. If you are a massive company with 100 employees and your whole business is based on every year we build X amount of apartments or houses and we sell them, if you say, hey, a crash is coming, we got to stop, that means you're basically telling 100 employees to, hey, for the next 2 years, we want you to twiddle your thumbs. Yeah.
And here's the thing. That's the hardest decision making for board level and leaders. I sat in a boardroom 2.5 years ago now to exactly that point.
Yeah.
And the developers looking, Deri, what's the strategy? How do we get a strategy for the next 5 years to accelerate growth? And I'm like, we don't. You got to stop this party now and go to cash. So when this does sort itself out, remember we're in the UK. I know there's a lot of international investors on here. At that point in time, Brexit was already done and looming. We had very big uncertainties in the marketplace. We were already overdue a little bit of a correction in the markets after a boom post 2008. All the indicators were going, you're insane to pile in on volume right now. And a lot of the big boys were doing it.
This is about 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to be fair to them, they were doing about 100 mil projects every year.
Right.
So big balls decision time, right? And to be fair to them, we looked at, and we said, let's look at this. So we looked at all the data, we looked at all the economics, and it also, you go, too much uncertainty, right? Now, a big part of what we do at BGI Group, so if you want to go and see anything around that, it's bgistrategy.com. Just go over there. That's the strategy side of my businesses.
I'll add the link, by the way, for everyone in the show notes. So bgistrategy.com?
.com. And the reason I mention that is because our major tagline there, and we've got a whole scorecard around it, is certainty. We built the whole business around certainty, right? because that's the word we're talking about right now, is in order for strategy to be, to stand there as a leader and execute strategic vision really confidently and get everyone behind and execute, you have to be certain, right? And certainty is the main driving force of the entrepreneur. Now we have hope as an entrepreneur, and a lot of property investors go in with hope, woohoo! And you need hope. If you haven't got hope, you're stuffed. And that, by the way, it's hope.
I can take that on like small deals. I mean, we're seeing that on right now. We've just set up a development company. Obviously, not really the size you were on the board of. We're talking about hopefully doing 24 deals with about £1 million of profit next year. But we're getting deals over the line where the team is bringing them to us and going like, well, here, if we get a valuation of 400,000, we spend 260 and we get 400. And we go, we look at it, we say, hey, that looks awesome. And then Gisela sits down and does the due diligence and says, yeah, we're not getting a valuation over 280. Yeah, but if we got 400, I was like, yes, if we did, that would be awesome. But we're not getting more than 280. And that means the deal just doesn't work. And that really that's the small version of, you want to wish that these deals are awesome, but that's why you have to look at the numbers.
And that's the if, right? You said the if that's hope, right?
Yeah.
And no disrespect, but when I was in my 20s, I had loads of ifs and I was a fool. I thought I wasn't.
Well, it's fine. I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I'm okay. I'm old now.
You're all grown up now. So
yeah, good, right? I'm a grown up now.
But that if and hope. The hardest thing I think for us, and when you're looking at the property entrepreneurs coming through, the newbies coming, and a lot of people here wanting to get into property and excited, I'm not here to kind of quash that excitement and just go, you're ridiculous. Those ifs and hopes and wishes are never going to come true. What I am to say is you must put another level of thinking on top of your ifs and buts, right, and all your kind of hopes and wishes. And you've got to now really step up as a professional, which you should be in any industry, right? And be really good on your numbers, your due deal, your comparables in that case with Gisela, to go, do you know what? I could be wrong, by the way. This is the thing. It's not about being right or wrong. It's just about being certain, right? And it's that if it comes to 400K, will show me any comparable that suggests that if is remotely true. Now, I know how you guys do your due deal, right? And Gisela is particularly rigorous around this. So she'll have gone, there's 10.
She'll go in and she'll find the average square meter prices, the average price in the area, all the comparables in the area, and find it. Obviously, for anyone who hasn't done Property Game Changer, in Property Game Changer, she literally shows you over 6 hours how to do this. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But when you know that, you can quickly say, no, this one's not going to be worth 400. We're not doing that deal. Or, wow, we just found a deal that's worth 400 and we're only going to be paying all in 260. This is an amazing deal. Let's do it. And it gives, as you say, it gives that certainty. It gives that confidence that we know, all right, this one we're doing and we're going to succeed.
And you see right now, and I don't care when you're watching this, you could be watching this and it's 2030, right? And it's the same message. Is right now in history, you need to do your due deal on a property basis, right? That's just being in the game properly. That's being certain, and that's just being a professional, right? And the property industry is rife with amateurs, which is a problem.
Obviously, no one listening to this podcast just want to say, we know you're listening, so you're awesome. We just know this.
I hope so. And if you're not, step up, right? Because this is the one industry. If you wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or a surveyor, everything, you train, you get really good experience, and then you can run your own practice, right? After maybe a decade. Property, go and do a weekend training course and you're away. It's like that's a start. And this is why you have multiple trainings, Daniel, right? Because you need to be deep on this. And you need mentoring, you need experience. So, and I just think this industry has been, by the way, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. It seems the easiest access point for people, which it is, by the way. However, then people kind of try to skip through. Oh yeah, I'll listen to your due deal, but then I'm just going to do it. And yes, we're 400K, and that's the bit you got to get. However, what I'm getting to is you've got to get the bit above that. You've got to really go and have a look at the markets. You've got to understand basic economics. So don't panic. This is not really complex shit or anything else. Just there's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of podcasts. There's plenty of stuff just to go, where are we at with the markets? Or and I would suggest both. Just go and tap into market stats, market leaders, people who are geeking out over this, like Daniel and your crew, Daniel, and people like you, right? Where their job is to understand the markets. And then there's a view of this is where I think the markets are right now. Right?
Yeah, it is an art form. It is an art form. You have the data, and then when you're prospecting the future, it really is an art form. I mean, for our mastermind students, I try to once a month give a finance update and kind of give a status. This is where we are. This is where we're going. And it is so hard, even with all the data that's coming out. I get data from NatWest, from Royal Bank of Scotland, from the Bank of England, property experts, industry experts, and trying to form a picture of that. It is a challenge. It really is.
It is, and there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's crystal ball gazing, right? So, yeah. And I think the trick of understanding where we are in the world right now, right? Notice I'm not making any dates on that. Wherever you are in the world right now, I want to take the banking view. I want to take the fund manager view. I want to take some property entrepreneurs. I want to take a local view. I want to take a national view. I want to take a global view. And do you know what?
This just reminds me of a quote I heard a few years ago from, he was the top financial analyst in the United States. He'd been it for, decades. And when he finally retired, they brought him on an interview and they asked, like, all right, now that you're retired, please share the secret sauce. How did you know better than anyone else where the economy was going? And he kind of looked at the interviewer and just smiled a little bit. And he said, I always predicted growth. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, no, I always predicted growth and I was always right. And what would happen was he would go, no, the market is going to grow. And then a crash would come and people would go, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? You said there was going to be growth. He said, just wait. There will be growth. And finally it came around and, growth happened and everyone was like, oh my God, he'd been saying it for 3 years. How did he know? And he was always the smartest guy in the room. And all he just did was, I predict growth. The markets will grow. So it really is a crystal ball. A lot of people are guessing and you're trying to make as educated a guess as you can.
Absolutely. And look, this is why I'm saying time, right? Is where is it going to be in 10 years time? And I think that everyone's panicking of where's the market in the UK particularly right now is what's it doing in 2021? That's the big question right now. And I'm very interested in that question particularly. However, what I'm interested in is where's it going to be in 2030?
Yeah. And so as an investor now, if I'm just getting into the market and I'm looking to start, I want to buy because I want to get my first couple deals. I want to start building my cash flow. How do you look at this from a strategic point of view? I mean, obviously I do due diligence on that property, but how do you look at this overall?
So there's a few things. I think whenever I'm looking at an investment, this is a tricky one. Usually people first time in are doing property for a freedom project.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the first question is this truly a business that you're passionate about? Is this something you love and this is your game? Or is this a side project and this is an investment? That's a very important distinction. Because I think a lot of people see property as a freedom vehicle. Yeah. And their main businesses are somewhere else. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. A lot of people then just throw the toys out the pram on their main business and just go into property. And they fall out of love with it very quickly because it's not their passion project. I have to mention that because I think without that context, it's...
well, isn't that what happened to you originally when you built up your original HMO portfolio, became financially free, and then was like, well, this wasn't 100%. So fun now.
And this is why no one told me this. This is why I talk about it on the stages. I've talked about this on your stages over in Sweden, Daniel, which is, I built up a portfolio for freedom. And then actually no one told me that I'd get bored. Yeah. No one told me that I just can't, I don't like the HMO strategy, and that it's a great strategy. It makes money, it just bores me shitless, right?
Yeah.
No, doesn't mean don't do that strategy. You do it for a purpose.
Yeah, but exactly. It's a part of a larger strategy. You put that, it's an investment. You have that cash flow. Now you can go off. Exactly. Now you go off and start other businesses.
And what I find is a lot of people get trapped and sucked in their freedom vehicle.
Right.
Right. And then actually lose passion.
Right.
And this is the thing. I've talked a lot of, are you truly passionate about property? And someone's actually taken the strategy on a page now. My main methodology on business for now nearly 15 years has been strategy on a page. And I do a specific one around property, which you've seen me deliver, Daniel. Yeah. And in that purpose piece is why do we exist? I always talk about passion. And out of all the property investors I've spoken to around the world, very few, or they start to put their hands up, who's really truly passionate about property. And actually most aren't. They are mistaking. And those who've kind of put their hands up are mistaking most of the time. They're mistaking passion for excitement.
Yeah.
And in the early days, if you're in a job you don't like and you want to get out, and this is your freedom vehicle, it's very easy to get excited, right? And don't get me wrong, property is still exciting. You get to buy a property and you do it up and you say, oh, the first few is really quite exciting. Doesn't mean it's your passion for business. Doesn't mean it's your passion for life. It doesn't mean it's your legacy and it's your purpose project. It could be, by the way. In fact, I remember very vividly in Stockholm when I asked this question, there was only one girl who put her hand up, and it was a young girl in the front of the audience whose mum was with her. And she loved it. She geeked out. She was going around the streets just looking at property, and she was, I don't know, she was like 18 or something. She was young still, right?
Yeah, well, actually, she was older than she looked. I know who you're talking to. She was actually 25. She just looked younger than you.
It's the Swedish. You just all look so young over there. She's got a better lifestyle.
So pretty. That's just what we are, right? I'm just half.
Yeah,
pretty,
I'm not.
sadly,
I'm gonna call you American, and we'll dodge that conversation. So, but it's that if without the passion, you've got to know why you're going in and understand that context. Because a lot of people, I think, fail and actually fall into depression when they're supposedly free, which is awful. Now, if you then, let's just pretend for a moment this is a business for you, or it is an investment project. Doesn't matter which one, really. You've got to find the right area, find the right strategy, find the right whatever for you, because there's different strategies for different markets and different localities.
I think that's an important point too. If you look at it, obviously I'm not passionate about every part of property. I'm very passionate about how to structure deals, how to raise finance for deals, and how to do the strategy around it. Giselle, on the other hand, couldn't care less. That's like Daniel handles that. She geeks out and loves the data, the analysis, the long-term, the long-term growth of a single deal and a portfolio. And that's where you can all, I know you talk about this a lot, is that property has so many different facets that no one's going to be good at all of them. No one's going to be passionate about all of them. But if you find your passion within that big space that is property, then you can geek on there, and you just got to find the partners that complement you in that space.
And I think this is very misunderstood in property, right? I talk to businesses, right, real businesses generally, and you can see the dynamic in real business, through marketing, sales, operations, cash, and talent, the primary core strategies, right? They're different people, right? And you can see that in a complementary board in a business. The marketing director is the opposite of the finance director. The sales director is usually in conflict with the ops director, right? And then you've got the talent director, which normally doesn't exist anyway in the mid space, right? But you've got that, and then the CEO MD. That's a typical structure. When you get big enough, most smaller businesses, you're doing all of it, right? That's another problem. But it's a natural thing to business to go, we need different people for different skill sets to complement and fully scale this business. In property, just one person running it. And then they do power teams, and power teams are really important, but that's just bloody obvious, right? You need a plumber, and you need an electrician, and you need your lawyer. And actually, just because people get their power team around them, they forget that actually you need a complementary set of skills to run the business internally. And that's, I think, why I find a lot of husband-wife teams work really well, typically when they're opposites and complement each other, right? And then it's the solo guys that kill themselves because they're trying to do it all. And that's the problem, whether, if you're male or female, it's irrelevant on sex, but if you're running that whole property empire and you are it, and then you've just got a power team around it, you're likely to burn out. And that's one of my massive passion projects at the moment, by the way, is burnout, because I've seen too much of it, Daniel, and property world is rife with it. Ironically, the property world is one of the best freedom vehicles, and yet it's the one that most property people get themselves trapped in, because they don't practice proper business discipline within those functions, and you get trapped in the very thing that's supposed to free you. That's just gone wrong, isn't it?
No, absolutely. What am I supposed to do as a new investor? I'm whether this is a passion or not, what do I do now?
So look, you're ready for some deals, right? And get me wrong, I've been holding off on a number of big businesses on deal flow recently, but we're getting ready. It's being ready, right? And this is the key. You should always be ready, and you should then you move when you're certain. Not perfection. We're not seeking perfection, right? Let's not go there, but you want to be certain enough. So basically, know the markets, know the bigger context, follow lots of different people. No one's right or wrong. Do not follow a guru and think the guru knows all. The moment you think
except me, of course, I'm always right. Just saying.
Well, at the moment, and take a view but then look around, to Daniel's point earlier, that guy was saying it's going to grow. There's always going to be growth, and there will, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, choose your strategy wisely. I'm not going to go there. We could talk a billion strategies here, whether it's HMO or buy-to-let, blah, blah, right? There's so many different ones. But again, don't follow a guru who says HMO is the only strategy, because it's not, right? You've got to understand the different strategies in the marketplace, or this is not actually it's a strategy. I argue the toss on this a lot. It's business model, right?
Yeah.
Choose your business model.
We see so many like education companies. All they teach is go out and do flips.
Yeah.
Do your first couple deals should be flips. And they've been saying that whether the market is going up or whether there's coming a crash, and you see people wiping out.
And that's where I'm saying you've got to have a wider view, right?
Yeah.
And flips work brilliantly if the market's going up. It can work on a sideways market.
If it's one of those things, you buy a property and you don't do anything, or you buy it off plan, 2 years later, you've made a 25% profit, go flip your heart out.
And you can, buy and renovate and drive value up and then flip. But equally, if the market's shifted or going backwards, that can go very bad very quickly, right? And because there's a bit of uncertainty out there, generally, at the moment, back to certainty, there's certain strategies that will work. But what I would suggest at the moment for the newbie, what you don't want to do is blow up on your first outing, right? So I'm here to try to protect the newbies to an extent, because there's a lot of people out there go, just do flips or whatever. I'm like, maybe for you, maybe in your part of the world, maybe right now. But be certain of that. Don't follow a guru dude saying that. What I would be certain of is if you buy well under a strategy that you're certain about, in the right area, and you're in for the long play, that's about as good as it gets. So, but be in for 10 years, and don't freak out if it goes backwards. To that investment guru you talked about, Daniel, right?
No, exactly. And that's what we're talking about in all of these updates. It's like, if you're going to buy now, a crash might or probably might come in 2021. Just make sure you can buy now. Just make sure you'll be fine. You won't wipe out if the markets do go down. If they go up, great. That's gravy on, that's gravy. You take that profit. But if it goes down, you have to structure yourself in a way that you can survive it.
Yeah. And look, you go, will the markets, or should the property, if you bought a property now and did nothing to it, in 10 years' time, is that property likely to be worth more? Yeah. Possibly.
It depends on the area, of course. There are certain areas
where not much happens. Things, right?
Yeah.
So you go, but generally. Now, equally, there's a number of areas in the UK where if I'd have done this podcast in 2008-9, after the crash, you'd say, oof, if we're sitting here in 2020, now bound to be up. And there's some places in the UK where that's not happened.
Yeah.
Right? So I've been around a long time, right? So I've got a little bit more wisdom and grey hair to be able to put this context in place. So again, people will go, yeah, definitely the market will be up in 10 years. That's not a definite, actually, in any case. But again, if in certain parts, I would, London's a bit peaky at the moment. And I think London's already had a correction internally, by the way. So you'll see that if you've tried to sell or buy. There's a number of stimulus packages come through the UK, which makes things very difficult to predict because it's different. We've never seen this before. But if I was going to bet on any market being up in 10 years, not next year or the year after, by the way, I'm not betting on that. But would I bet London would be up in 10? Yeah, there's certain parts of the world where demand is constantly strong. And I'd bet on the outskirts of London actually more, that you'd go, I'd bet on that, right? And that's it, it's certainty. I'd bet on that in 10 years, right? Yeah. Would I bet on it next year? Nope. Not taking that bet, thanks very much. And look, and that's what we're trying to do here, right? Is we've got to be certain enough. And you know what, if it goes wrong, you go, c'est la vie, right? Yeah. And that's it, we've got to be strong, but equally don't blow everything for the newbies coming in. Don't throw the shop at one deal or two deals, and if it doesn't work out, you're done and you'll bust. Or fine, know what you're doing, go bust, and then come back again, right? Yeah. I did that, so I know what that feels like. But I, in hindsight, I thought I was the perfect strategist back then as well. So I've been there, I've experienced the highs and the lows. My ego got in my way of me in the first decade, and I thought I knew more. And I now know I don't know.
And that's the only thing you can hope for.
Exactly.
All right, Deri. So thank you so much for joining us. I know people want to learn more from you. So how can they get a hold of you to get access to all the teachings and strategies and things you're working on?
Best just check me out at deri.live, www.deri.live. For those
I'll add the
people.
link in the show notes for that complex link, Deri, DERI.live, spelled as live. But I'll add the link in case that was hard.
All my businesses are off there. That's just that's my personal brand. That's where people will find me. But then, we've got the property. We don't do property education. We don't do that. So please don't come anywhere near me for that. We sit on boards of scale up companies. Particularly, we do a lot in the property scale up world. But I've got Raglan Country Estate, which Daniel's pre-invested in. So you'll see a property play. You'll see live. You can see how we do live projects on that, as well as the time stuff and the strategy stuff is what we teach in a much deeper way. So come and hang out over there with us, and there's loads of content available for you.
Sounds great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Deri. And thank you to everyone for listening. I have some exciting news for you in a moment, so stay tuned. Thank you again, Deri, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Well, that was amazing, wasn't it? Deri really is brilliant. He's done so much for me, and I hope you bring with you some of these lessons on your journey to support you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening. I got some very exciting news as well, because the next episode will be with one of our few recurring guests. I asked Ben Chai to come back on the show again, and the reason was he helped me with our mastermind. So we have, for our inner circle members, our inner circle of clients, we have a bi-weekly mastermind session where we bring in a property expert to advise on property strategy, project management, raising finance, or anything else in the property world. Well, we had Ben join us on the show, and he started sharing with the group how he had raised finance, because he was in a situation where the poor man had £3 million, too much, of investor capital, so he couldn't even spend all the capital he had. I know, rough times, huh? Rough times. But he shared with the group how he had done this. How had he been able to get people to join him and invest in that mass in order for him to do so many deals. And it was such a brilliant session that I asked him to come back on the show and share with us that process, that system, and that philosophy. We've had him on the show before teaching about some of the challenges that can come up on property, but this was truly, truly powerful, and I hope you are looking forward to it. It is coming next week. So make sure you're subscribed to the Momentum Investing Podcast. You can subscribe to our channel, and you'll get all the information when the episode comes out. Otherwise, if you have questions about the mastermind or anything like that, send us an email at support@momentumpropertyeducation.com, and we are happy to help you. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening.